Mupresidente wa Cyril Ramaphosa vari madalo a u ḓisa mulalo nga vharangaphanḓa vha ḽino dzhango ḽa Afrika ngei shangoni ḽa Ukraine na Russia o tshimbila zwavhuḓi. Vhe vhuya vha president kha ḽino shango ḽa Afrika Tshipembe Vho Thabo Mbeki na Vho Jacob Zuma vho bva mulomo nga madalo a mashango a ḽino dzhango ḽa Afrika kha ḽa Ukraine khathihi na Russia. Vhatambi vha Banyana vha ri tshenzhemo ye vha i wana kha miṅwaha mina yo fhiraho i ḓo vha vhea kha vhuimo havhuḓi mitamboni ya tshiphuga tsha ḽifhasi ya FIFA. Ndi masiari ri khou vha ṱanganedza kha Mafhungo a Tshivenda fhano kha tshanele yashu ya DTT. Mathina vha songo hangwa uri mafhungo ashu a wanala na kha tshanele yashu ya YouTube, akhaunthu ya Twitter khathihi na kha Facebook. President wa Afrika Tshipembe Vho Cyril Ramaphosa vari makumedzwa avo kha president wa shango ḽa Ukraine khathihi na president wa shango ḽa Russia Vho Vladimir Putin nga vharangaphanḓa vha mashango ḽino dzhango ḽa Afrika o vhumba mutheo wavhuḓi u itela nyambedzano dza tshifhinga tshiḓaho dzine dza ḓo thusa u wana thandululo kha nndwa vhukati ha mashango ayo mavhili. President Vho Ramaphosa vho khunyeledza madalo avo a u shuma mashangoni ayo mavhili he vharangaphanḓa vha ḽino dzhango ḽa Afrika vha dzinginya nḓila dza u ḓisa mulalo kha nndwa idzo dzo no fhedza miṅwedzi ya 60. Fhedzi ndi nnyi ane anga hangwa zwo vhoramafhungo vha Afrika Tshipembe khathihi na vhalindi vha president vha ṱangana nazwo musi vha tshi hana lwo dzhena ngei Poland lwa awara dzo no fhira 24 nga ri lavhelese mavhala a nngwe.
The aircraft transporting over 100 security personnel with heavy gunfire was prevented from entering Poland without original permits for their weapons. The head of the Presidential Protection Unit says they're being sabotaged by the Polish government.
It never happened that we have stood opposite anyone with a diplomatic passport.
President Ramaphosa arrived early via train into the Ukrainian capital, and it did not take long for him to be met by the soundtrack which is becoming all too familiar for that city.
The quest for peace, in our view, is an important one, and the launching of the missiles today, in our view, does not deter us.
Russia is blocking all the possible initiatives. We already had this in the past. Once again, we had the situation with the Minsk. We're not going to restart this story once again.
The delegation of African leaders is in St. Petersburg for talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
A number of proposals that have been put forward, we believe, lay a foundation for a peace to be found. And this is precisely what we would like to explore, so that all of us together can contribute to bringing this war to an end.
They rejected that. Where are the guarantees that they will not reject any other agreements that we might make? Even in these conditions, we have never rejected the idea of negotiating with them. It wasn't us, it was the leadership of Ukraine who said they would not negotiate with us. Moreover, the acting president of Ukraine signed a decree prohibiting to negotiate with Russia. I fully understand your concerns. I sympathize with them, and we are ready to consider all of your proposals, but we have never rejected the idea of negotiations. It was Ukraine who did it.
От нас хотят.
Zwichika ḓivha zwo ralo vha tshe mupresidente Vho Cyril Ramaphosa vari ayo madalo a u ḓisa mulalo nga vharangaphanḓa vha dzhango ḽa Afrika ngei Ukraine khathihi na Russia o tshimbila zwavhuḓi. President Vho Ramaphosa ndi muṅwe vharangaphanḓa vha sumbe vha dzhango ḽa Afrika vhane vha katela vha Zambia, Comoros khathihi na Senegal khathihi na vhaimeleli vha mashango a Congo Brazzaville, Egipta khathihi na Uganda vhe vha fara muṱangano na president wa shango ḽa Russia Vho Vladimir Putin vha mulovha. Izwo ḓo tevhela muṱangano wa tshigwada itshi na president wa shango ḽa Ukraine Vho Volodymyr Zelensky nga ḽavhuṱanu. Vho Ramaphosa vari na chipikwa chihulwane cha vurumelo havo u fhelisa nndwa dzenedzi fhedzi vari vhonekedza makumedzo a pfadzaho nahone vachigwada vato vachigwada cha u tou thoma tshe tsha fara mutangano na varangaphanḓa vho vhavhili nga maḓuvha mavhili a tshi khou tou tevhekana.
I think our mission was
President wa kale Jacob Zuma va khou vona mulandu dzangano la North Atlantic Treaty Organization kana NATO kha u dzhena halongera Ukraine sa wone mudzi muhulwane wa nndwa vhukati ha shango ilo na shango la Russia. Vho Zuma vho amba izwi nga thungo ha khuvhangano ya dzangano la vhadzulapo la Sanko ngei kwa Ximba vhukovhela ha Durban. Mafheloni a vhege ya President wa fhano Vho Cyril Ramaphosa vho vha tshipiḓa tsha vharangaphanḓa vha dzhango la Afrika vhe vha ṱangana na President wa shango la Ukraine khathihi na President wa shango la Russia kha ndingedzo dza u ḓisa mulalo vhukati ha mashango mavhili. Vho Zuma vha ri mashango a vhukovhela a tou vha na vuvu la u vhona mbumbano ya mashango a BRICS.
I think Russia has been saying this is their neighbor. You can't, in a neighboring country, bring NATO to interfere with Russia when you don't even want a country in the Middle East or Africa to think independently. You go there, you attack, you do everything. It's a one-sided discussion so far. But you need to find a solution to solve the problem. But people must be honest that in fact they are breaking the rules of the world because they are powerful. That does not help. And this particular war is in fact linked to the existence of BRICS. They don't like the existence of BRICS. And this started because they wanted to try to crush BRICS. But unfortunately, you can't crush BRICS.
Musi zwi tshi kha ḓivha zwo ralo vha tshe muphuresidennde Vho Cyril Ramaphosa vha ri ayo madalo a u ḓisa mulalo nga vharangaphanḓa vha dzhango la Afrika ngei Ukraine na Russia o tshimbila zwavhuḓi. President Vho Ramaphosa ndi muṅwe wa vharangaphanḓa vha sumbe vha dzhango la Afrika vhane vha katela vha Zambia, Comoros khathihi na Senegal khathihi na vhaimeleli vha mashango a Congo, Brazzaville, Egipta khathihi na Uganda vhe vha fara mutangano na President wa Russia Vho Vladimir Putin mbamulova. Izwo ḓo tevhela mutangano wa tshigwada tshenetshi na President wa shango la Ukraine Vho Volodymyr Zelensky nga Ḽavhuṱanu.
I think our mission was impactful. Its real success obviously will be measured on the ultimate objective of stopping the war. But the impact that it has had is that, one, we were listened to as we gave an African perspective on the war that's having negative consequences for our continent. And secondly, we probably the only group that has engaged the two leaders within a short space of time to put forward a very strong proposal and view that the war must end. But we also accompanied that broad proposal with a number of elements which have to do with the recognition of the sovereignty of countries in terms of the UN Charter. That we put forward unambiguously, and we spoke about the de-escalation of the conflict. We also added that the humanitarian assistance must get to the people who are suffering in the war, and part of that must be about the release of prisoners of war, as well as the release of the children who were taken out of Ukraine and to be returned back. Now, those are some of the key issues, but we also spoke about the release and the opening up of the Black Sea for movement of grains and fertilizers to the world markets, which is where we are impacted quite negatively. But I think the most important outcome of these discussions was, one, the willingness to talk initially to us, and the other one is the willingness to go through the various issues that we raised and the commitment that we will engage further. And as it is now, the continent, Africa, is going to have a summit with Russia, which is the second summit, the first one having been held a few years ago. And we will continue our discussions with President Putin then. And in the intervening period, we'll also be talking to President Zelensky, because we also want to know his response to a number of the other issues we raised.
musi zwo ḓiralo president wa kale wa Thabo Mbeki vha ri zwo vharangaphanḓa vha ḽino dzhango vha ita zwone zwa u thoma vha thetshelesa masia ayo mavhili phanḓa musi vha tshi nga ḓa na nḓila dza u tandulula thaidzo idzi ndi maga a vhuḓi nga ḽino dzhango. Vho Mbeki vho amba zwenezwi vhuṱamboni ha u pembelela miṅwaha yavho ya 19 ngei Market Theatre hune ya vha Braamfontein ḓoroboni ya Johannesburg Madekwe.
I'm glad that this African leadership that has gone to Moscow and to Kiev have said that their first task is to listen. Because I think it's important that they should understand what the Russian Federation is saying, what Ukraine is saying, to have a full grasp of the issues, the matters at issue. I think it's only then that they would be able to elaborate a suggestion from Africa as to what we as Africans think should be done to end the war, to come out of the crisis. So I hope they have listened carefully to what has been said. As I say, because it's only after that it will be possible for us to say what needs to be done.
Musi president Vho Ramaphosa vho vhuya fhano hayani Afrika Tshipembe nga murahu madalo avho a nyambedzano dza u ḓisa mulalo vhukati ha shango ḽa Ukraine khathihi na Russia ye vha vha vho farisana na vhaṅwe vharangaphanḓa vha dzhango ḽa Afrika. Hu na mbudziso dzo vhalaho dzine dza khou vhudziswa nga murahu ha edzea Vho Ramafhungo khathihi na vhatsireledzi vha presidennde vhe vha 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 tshi khou enda nga bufho ḽa SAA musi vha tshi hanelwa dzhena kha shango ḽa Poland u khunyeledza lwendo lwavho. Tshigwada tshenetshi ndi tshe tsha haedzea lwa awara dzine dza fhira 24 vha sa khou tendelwa u tsa bufhoni iḽo. Matsheloni ana musi vho Tshepo Mavhona vho amba zwi tevhelaho musi vha tshi khou saukanya fhungo ḽeneli.
It looks from our side as a country, as South Africa, that there must have been some type of administrative bungles, administrative errors, where some checks and balances may have not been conducted. And this is worsened by the fact that not a single position or statement has been issued to articulate exactly what has transpired. So we actually don't know, but we are speculating based on what we are seeing, that someone else is saying, but you didn't seem to have all the paperwork in place. You don't also seem to understand that we're in a war zone, and you seem to have walked into our country or flown into our country with a whole lot of weapons that we think are unwarranted, given that you are here in terms of a peace-keeping mission. But simultaneously, you may also argue that from the Polish perspective, if this was a different country or a different group of people, i.e. the West, America and the UK, would those weapons been an issue in that environment? We don't know. But all indications are that there must have been some type of an administrative bungle on our side. And there may also be tension from the Polish government, given the position that South Africa has taken on the Russia matter and the inconsistencies of messaging in terms of Ukraine, Russia, the BRICS summit, the ICC matter. There was just a complexity and plethora of miscommunication and different positions articulated by senior officials from the same government. And so unfortunately, it eventually became a South African issue because it was our chartered flight that was stopped. And it's regrettable, I think. But I think there was a serious administrative errors. The trick here is that no one is communicating proactively. So they're leaving us to take information that we see in the mainstream media, in mainstream conversations, and form an opinion and form a view. And they're leaving the rest of the world to form opinions. And now, when you look at international titles around the world, they are running with the story. And the indication and the perceptions that these are driving is that we don't seem to be a coordinated organization. That instead, we come across like we are going about these things on a trial and error basis. But also we remember that markets work on perceptions and not necessarily on facts. So we're creating room room for business leaders, for citizens around the world, South African citizens around the world, for the world indeed, to speculate and to create their own versions about why would we be carrying this amount of ammunition, why would we not do the checks and balances, and it gives an impression that we are really not ready to become part of the first world dialogue and discussions, first world leadership. And maybe there's something that some things were done correctly step by step, because in this job we can imagine that there's a lot of work, there's a lot of at stake, a lot of stakeholders involved, but it doesn't seem like we have created a step-by-step approach, and we're not telling anyone any information quick enough, leaving it to the security cluster on the ground. You could see the head of the president's security cluster or security team really trying at best, the general, to articulate what he seems things could have happened, to a point where he even raised issues of allegations of racism, which at that particular point in time may not necessarily be the right approach from a bilateral relations perspective, that perhaps we should only focus at that point in time on the facts. And so we are leaving the pages, the newspaper headlines around the world to really be preoccupied about the racism issue, as opposed to the fundamentals of why we went there as a city, as a continent, and the intent of the mission. And that's where I would probably give the credit here to the team that went to negotiate, that from a messaging point of view, the message has landed that the war must end. Whether that will stop, the one conversation can stop the war. In fact, one analyst or journalist, I think in one of the Sunday papers, said it took more than 150 conversations for another war to stop. So you can't have this one conversation and expect that, you know, things will turn around the next day. But it's from an image perspective, it's a positive gesture, it's a positive contribution.
matinavo ndipo tsepo matsiva vane vakosaukanya mafhungo au haidziwa ha chigwada cha Pan-Africa Tshipembe cha vhoramafhungo ngei Poland khathihi na chigwada cha vatsireledzi va presidente. Muambasada wa shango la Ukraine Pan-Africa Tshipembe vane vha vho Lyubov Abravitova vari nyambedzano dza u lengedza u ḓisa mulalo nga vharangaphanḓa vha shango la Afrika vhukati ha shango ḽavho la Ukraine khathihi na Russia dzo tshimbila zwavhuḓi.
This mission was important, that goes without saying. It was the first mission of that scale from Africa that visited Ukraine. We all were witnessing the message sent by Vladimir Putin to the leaders when they arrived to Ukraine and when they actually were visiting the city of Bucha when the missile attack started. What we can consider as achievement is that the direct dialogue was established between the heads of delegations and President Zelensky. We did confirm that our choice is to protect our land, protect our people, and it was made very clear that we do recognize the different crises and consequences that are coming because of Russian aggression in Ukraine, but the food insecurity in Africa and the lack of fertilizers is not the only concern that has to be a concern for African leaders. The complications and consequences are much broader. We're talking about damage of infrastructure, about our children that were taken by Russia into Russia, etc. Let's agree that the position of each particular representative of this delegation is the starting points are very different. And I do believe that to agree on common language within themselves, it was already a big challenge. That is why, and we know the votes of each particular country represented in that mission during their positions taken in the United Nations General Assembly. The willingness of Russian Federation to talk to them also shows that Russia is ready to engage with this particular leaders that gives us the opportunity to send our strong messages, not only as we are doing on the battlefield, but also through diplomatic engagement that we know today that the President Ramaphosa confirmed that the message from Zelensky was delivered to Putin. We had a number of negotiations since the beginning of invasion. You remember there was a set of negotiations in Belarus, then we had one in Turkey. And during all those negotiations, what is important to remember that Russia was still occupying and coming deeper in the territories of Ukraine, killing our civilians. Thus, the further negotiations were not necessary anymore because the main goal of Russia was still there, is to take our territories and to eliminate our people.
Uyanga bone babona matero mu president wo Cyril Ramaphosa na bango baranga phanda ba mashango Africa khala Ukraine na Russia ochimbira zwa kudina kari rabelese bumwe bupfiwa ha rushaka marugana na fungo leneli Matina bo ngale bari ndibona songo chimbira zwa budi na u anwa michero nga uri lwendo loba lo dala khedu na midiyo iyo yo bachikovera phanda usumbedza uri awathu batsini na uri ndwa ifere Matina Botau Junior Mampye bari oshimbira zwa budi na usatoba na zwingi zwo bviselo khagala kha lwendo lonolu ndi atenda uri lobuyedza Vho mudzana ni tepere mbilu bari nne ndibona achidoshuma utoba uri adoja chipinga nga uri Zelensky president wa shango la Ukraine vachevo vaisala Matina Botakala ni muhali bari nne ndibona madalo oshimbira zwa budi zwishidoshera mulenje kha uri hube na chanduko Ripetisela ngapo mu batekani lia bara bane bari ndibona asadoshuma Ukraine iri Russia kha umere murahu kha zwipida zwo tubuwa nga Russia ngeno Russia ichiri zwipida zwa Ukraine zwo tubiwaho zwibawela fasi kha Russia ndwa ikatitobvera phanda President wa kale Jacob Zuma bane baba mdzula phanda wa dzangano la vadzula polasa nkhonge ivunduni la KwaZulu-Natal bari dzangano ilo likotodo fara mtangano na baranga phanda bali horo la ANC phanda khetho kute dzangwakani Zuma bwamba izwi khumangano ni dzangano ilinge kwa Ximba ukobera ha Durban bari sankho idimisoro shumisana na lihoro la ANC tenda hakhethuwa bathu ufanelaho ushuma mu busoni
We should now, as SANCO, representing the citizens of this country, we should speak out. We should also help those who are in power to tell them what we think needs to be done. We haven't talked to them now about elections. We haven't talked to them about the elections. All what we have done is to work on our organization, to unite it, to come in to work out a strategy. How do we deal with the population insofar as ensuring that the elections come next year and they are won by the right kind of people or groupings.
Rikodo para patanganiza kama Mafhungo sha Tshivenda pano ka channel ya Shua DTT. Matina masera na musi bofanga fungo la mu president wo Cyril Ramaphosa banori madaro abo audesa muraro musevena bango baranga phanda ba mashango asumbe ajango la Africa ngeikhala Ukraine na Russia ochimbira zwa budi president bokatela bo ba Zambia Comoros katina Senegal katina ba emereri ba mashango a Congo Brazzaville Egypta katina Uganda be bafara mtangano na president wa Russia bo Vladimir Putin mbamroba izo tutavera mtangano wa chigwada chenechi na president wa shango la Ukraine bo Volodymyr Zelensky ngalaptano Vora budasi baswa vane balingana fumbili bange funduni la Free State vana chikhala cha ualusa bubindudzi yavo nga mramsi botanganiza chomezo katina zifuwo vaka mwasho wa bulimi funduni ilo mwasho wonoyu woshumisa masheleni anayapera randa za milioni za 10 uitalo warenga materetere katina zifuwo sachipita chambekanya mushumo yawo ya mwezi wa baswa varubvera phanda na ubindudzi akha baswa ndi ndira ya ubveledza vathu va machero vane vadoshera mulenje kha ikonomi nga ndira akhulwane
muvhuso u khou thoma u vhona mitshelo yavhuḓi. Izwi zwi khou tevhela zwine vhaswa nga vhunzhi vunḓuni ḽa Free State vha vhonala vha na dzangalelo nga vhunzhi kha sekithara ya vhulimi. Muhasho wa vhulimi wo topola vhaswa vha swikaho 2 vhane vha vha na fhulufhelo khavho na vhukoni, nahone muvhuso u ḓo thusa nga u vha lambedza khathihi na u vha pfumbudza uri vha vhe vhalimi vhakone vhane vha ḓo shela mulenzhe kha ikonomi ya ḽino. Vhorabulasi vhararu vho lambedziwa nga maṱereṱere ngeno vhorabulasi vhaṱanu vho lambedziwa nga kholomo khathihi na zwiṋamana, ngeno vhunzhi ha vhorabulasi ava vho dovha hafhu vha lambedziwa nga nguluvhe dza 10 khathihi na zwiḽiwa zwa nguluvhe, manyoro, mbeu khathihi na zwishumiswa zwa u shuma ngazwo. Muṅwe wa vholambedzwa uri aya a tou vha mashudu a phele, nahone zwi ḓo thusa vhukuma u takula nḓowetshumo iyi.
I have been a farmer for almost 6 years now. I am a farmer in Eastern Free State, Rosendal, place called Rosendal. It's a small town. I am so excited by the government, Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, by giving me 10 cows. 10 of them, they are all pregnant and a bull.
Muhasho wa vhulimi nga kha bazari wo kona u topola vhaswa vha re na vhukoni uri vha kone u isa phanḓa na u takula sekithara iyi. Karabo Levhuso ndi rabulasi muṱuku o gudaho zwa vhulimi ngei Russia, nahone u khou shela mulenzhe kha u thusa u ṱavha na mveledziso ya zwimela.
Got the passion when my uncle gave me 1 calf. That's where my passion grew, and then I started loving agriculture more. So from there I wanted to grow more and more and more. I got the privilege to go and study abroad. I studied research agronomy. I completed it. I'm a registered agronomist right now.
Iṅwe nḓila ya khwine ndi u shumisa tshimedzo dzine vha vha nadzo u sumbedza u vha na dzangalelo kha zwa vhulimi.
Look, in overall, the intervention that we are really making, it's around 10 million, staggered in different figures. But this is a decisive intervention to young people that we have really selected based on what they have done. These are not new people who are studying. These are people who sacrificed from having fun with their money. These are the people who sacrificed from buying a car, but they chose to buy livestock. They chose to do crop farming.
Vha muhasho vha dovha hafhu vha thola vhaswa vha 10 vhane vha ḓo shuma na mavunḓu oṱhe u thusa vhorabulasi vhaṱuku vhane vho ndela tshoṱhe u vha kha sekithara iyi.
Vhabveledzi vha dzifilimu vhane vha kha ḓi vha vhaṱuku vunḓuni ḽa Northern Cape vha ri vha khou ṱoḓa thikhedzo nnzhi kha muvhuso wa vunḓu u itela u fhaṱa nḓowetshumo yeneyi. Miṅwahani i si gathi yo fhelaho vha na matambwa manzhi khathihi na dzifilimu zwo bveledziwaho vunḓuni iḽo. Fhedzi vhabveledzi avha vha dzifilimu vha ri vha kha ḓi balelwa u wana ndambedzo dza masheleni. Muṅwe mubveledzi muṱuku wa dzifilimu wa ngei Rodipan hune ya vha Kimberley u kati na u foda filimu ḽitambia ḽawe tshikolobulasi tshine tsha ḓivhelwa zwiito zwa dzigenge khathihi na thaidzo dza matshilisano.
Musi zwo ralo vhupo ha Rodipan ndi vhupo vhune ha ḓivhelwa zwidzidzivhadzi na vhushayi. Afha ndi hune Eriko ka bva hone ha dovha vha hune a ṱuṱuwedzea hone.
As a writer myself, I tend to take inspiration from my environment, from my community. And those are issues that are prevalent in my community especially, such as substance abuse, unemployment is a huge issue amongst the youth. So for me, these are things that we have to raise in our stories, speak about and address them so that the broader community can take them serious.
Koku ku rekhoda muvo wa vhuvhili afha Rodipan. Vhunzhi ha vhatambi na vhashumi vha filimu iyi ndi vha bva vhuponi honovho. Muthanga uyo u khou lingedza u takula vhutshilo ha vhathu vha vhupo uvho. A dovha lingedza u vhona uri zwiṱori zwawe zwi vhe na ndunzhendunzhe.
90% of our cast and crew is made up of young people. I believe that our community, Rodipan, it has many issues and problems, but I believe that we also have a lot of talent in this community and opportunity. We just need the resources to be able to uplift and also empower our youth.
Kha vhanzhi ndi lwa u thoma vha tshi ḓivhona vho ima phanḓa ha khamera kana nga murahu hayo vhone vha na fulufhelo ḽa u bvela phanḓa na mushumo wo raliho.
This is my first time coming on set and doing a film, and I can say that I've learned a lot about the film industry. Definitely I would like to work in more movies.
It's wonderful to be part of the team that makes a movie happen, and it's just an amazing story placed in our community in Rodipan, and it just tells a story of what happens in our community, where it's relationships, crime, poverty, those type of things.
Nao zwo ralo masheleni one a dzulelo vha khaedu khulwane kha vhaiti vha dzifilimu afha Northern Cape.
We need to develop ourselves and we need support from government and from private companies or, venture capitalists to say, you know what, we're going to do this, we're going to support you and let us tell our story ourselves.
This is an opportunity for us to reach out and ask them to extend their hand so that we can improve in quality and also improve in terms of the resources that we have in our province.
Litambia kana filamu ya Cork ya uranga ya Lisbeth ndlela tambiwa pano haya na mashango na chaka lono lo visual chofisi ene unafulipira la uri zidora lobo na ka filamu yawo ya bubili ya buta kom heisto.
Zwazino karera belese chitemwa chashu changamisi unera chimbila richifa miumbulo ya rushaka. Ino bege rodarera ngiso wetu uneva chipembe ya dorobo ya Johannesburg. Ufa miumbulo ya rushaka ngake druze baswa na musi bari bananazo.
Our current leaders, they are not doing enough, but they are doing something. Meaning what they are doing is minimal. They have to do more for the youth. How come? That our current leaders, like for instance, when you check in National Assembly, in Parliament, the people that are there, they're elderly people. Yet the majority of people in this country is youth. So how can you explain that?
Well, we've got a very high rate of unemployment in the country, as you know, and the economy is not doing well. Not only in South Africa, but we are the hardest hit among other countries as far as development and economic growth is concerned. So, I mean, we still need a lot of investments and programs that are going to be addressed to the youth as such.
In the education system, I feel like we need more social workers, we need more psychologists for the kids to be mentally ready for the world and for the kids not to see themselves as failures from primary, because we release learners to high school only to find that they are nowhere. They don't have support at home, so more social workers and more support system at home.
The main challenge faced with youth is employment, of which there is a possibility of them getting employed if ever the government is going to check around in the companies and recruit the youth and replace those elderly people and give them pension.
So what I can say and pleading to the government, let them help our kids, or let them help our students, or let them help our learners to, after obtaining their degrees or after finishing the school, let them give them jobs.
We are facing challenges such as unemployment. Most of the youth, some of them are educated, they are out in the streets with their degrees, and hence they end up getting into drugs.
The youth of today is lost, if I may say so, because they don't realize the sacrifice that those people have put. And I'm saying to them, this country was fought for, and they must make sure that they educate themselves. That's one of the main things. And secondly, they must work very, very hard for them to be able to get this country to the level where it should be.
Musi shukatibazo raro va jendezi la rushaka la mveliziso ya baswa lo liviswa ukauni ya zukara zwa mishumo kabaswa vari sekretari ubinduzi ite ushara mrenje nga percent nji ule lopunguza mutsiki wone mubuso wako tangana nawo siyani la usika mishumo.
South Africa's issues, particularly that face young people, are more structural than anything else, in the sense that the issue of unemployment with young people in South Africa today is reflected in the percentage of self-employed people in the country. Globally, the average is around 44% for countries of the first world, but for emerging economies, 30% of the employed people are self-employed. But for South Africa, we are at around 10%. So you then get a sense of our reliance mostly on the formal economy, and insofar as the employment from direct, either the public sector or the private sector, without us being entrepreneurial enough. I mean, studies have shown that if we could increase our entrepreneurship and the number of people that are self-employed, you could get to a point where we halve our unemployment. If we could just get to where countries like your Brazil, your Mexico are at a level of 30%. So before we look at all the other issues, we need to start at a structural level of us not being, as a country, entrepreneurial enough.
Right.
And I was very encouraged to hear one of the young people you were talking to saying, as she's studying her diploma, she's considering to look for a job or to start her business after studying.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thinking we've got to get into as young people in order to be part of the solutions to the problems that currently face us today.
Mveredzi washu hlela mqhuqo unabaswa bange Fosfores uvaduva ha Johannesburg ufori bodemisela uita zwipio kharili bekhaya ufori baswa bakhorimini hlela ndi masiyari ngaba no referera zwipio bare mini baswa enepo.
Challenges I face is that every day in the morning you have to wake up and you have to fight for your dream every day so that you can support your family and maintain your standard of living, be someone in your community.
My personal issues is that I have to always hustle for money so that I can go and try to apply for jobs and schools and stuff. So it's not always easy, especially coming from a township. So you always have to try to look at other means of survival, like maybe selling maswiti, estradeni. Sometimes we have to, we would open corners here in our hood so that we can support our families. So yeah, that's the most public situation that we're facing currently.
I just feel like the youth these days, we are not inspired enough because there's not much opportunities, chances, and you know, like most of the time you find that we just doing nothing, and you can try going to the library, but the library only has one PC maybe, or has like old books that will not really teach you how to maybe function in the way of today. And I just think, honestly, that's just it. It's like inspiration. There's not much of it, and there's not much time and effort to put in, you know, the youth progressing and succeeding.
Vatambi vatimia rushaka ya bora ya vafumakazi ya Afrika Chipembe ya banyana vari chenjemo ya baiwana kamingwa mina yoperao ido babe ya kabwi mwabudi musi bachiri batona mendeni ya chipuga chalifasi ya vafumakazi ya FIFA inadofererwange Australia na New Zealand mwezi udao. Timu hii yokunisa matambele ayo kamingwa yene mina yoperao ya itano ubadzingwena za jango la Afrika ya batupa chipuga cha Women's Africa Cup of Nations mahola.
Timu yorushaka abanyana yonokwata vugumo bache ya general kamtasano wa tournament ya lifasi kamingwa mina yoferao he yatambange France yafeza mtasano kaketekanya zigwada abanyana yoshumazo of the tournament ya AFCON he yatuba icho chipuka nge Morocco mundavuna Kalin Swart uri timu yorushaka yoshumazo of the uva kamingwa isigati yoferao.
We've grown so much over the 4 years. I think you saw the growth that we had in Morocco too. You know, being African champions, it's not easy, and we gave it everything. We knew exactly what it was that we wanted, and we went for it. And now going to New Zealand, Australia, I think we're going to need a little bit more than what we gave at AFCON. I think we're all ready to go, but obviously there's still a little bit of preparations that need to be done, but I think we're all ready to go. I think the coaches know exactly what it is that's going to take us to the next step.
Mutambakati Robin Modet hangokono bachipida cha mtasano wa tournament ya lifasi chipingani choferao zazino okufurivaro ya kamtasano yu zidoshana murenze chote kaututuweza watambi.
That even adds a little more pressure. However, it gives us a little more boost because we're going there with already one championship and we're going there with the experience. That light, that feeling of winning is still with us, and to carry that into this tournament, I think, will be great.
Amukhala mutawo aniaba mutambakati naine ukarabrero bachipida cha tournament ya lifasi.
It's a goal that we can accomplish as a team with the experience of the overseas-based players and a mix of local players who've been working hard in the Hollywood Bet Super League. And I think it's something that we can accomplish, and I'm looking forward to that.
Banyana ekoraberera utamba mutambo wavukonani na timu isatu tiwaziwa. Panda musi isatu liwana na timu ya Costa Rica. Musi tournament isatu takucheza.
mutambi wa timu ya rushaka ya netball ya Proteas Izet Grisel uri kabege mbiri panda musi uchita kucheza mitambo ya chipuga cha lifasi ya netball bado bana chipunga choringana urugisala tournament iyo inadofara rwa doroboni ya Cape Town bukati ya mwezi udao. Proteas badotoma utangana bukati ya mwezi ofulwana kamra udibazi wa timu iya batambi bafu mitano mwezi opirao. Mugudisi wono maplama katina mtusi wabo po Nicole Cusack badokono tangana na batambi babo ngamaduba eneo.
Proteas badotangana pezi musi osera bege mbiri nga ngombo wa bamwe batambi bana bakatamba ka mitambo ya ligi ya Telkom netball katina bamwe batambi bana bakatambira timu zabo zange mashango daba bezi mutambi wa Proteas Izet Grisel uri sabatambi bane badatoma udurugisira osera bege mbiri bado baborugera ka mitambo I.
I think there's teams that actually will have less time than that. We are very privileged that we have been having regular camps for the last year or two. We've been getting together, we've been staying together. Yes, some of the players have been overseas and haven't been a part of it all the time, but they've been together since the end of Jan, where we played quite serious together, and then only they left for their clubs. But since then, the players that's here, majority of the players have been getting together regularly for 2, 3, even monthly camps. So we've had our preparation, we are ready. So that would just be the final touches, the last 2 weeks, getting that final touches ready for the World Cup. So yes, I think that is definitely enough time.
Grisel urindi matakaza mbiru kae ubashipeda cha chikwande chine cha demera shango musu uchitanu batambi abo mutambi uyu ubashipeda cha chikwande chine cha bacha Proteas kamitambo ya lipasi yopera ya farora pala England.
I'm so happy and so relieved, and I'm very honoured to be a part of this squad, and so excited for the World Cup. Like, I can't wait. I think it would be great playing in front of the home crowd and on South African soil, and yeah, I think it will definitely be the highlight of my career, playing the World Cup on South African soil. So I'm very, very honoured, very excited, and yeah, looking forward to it.
The Proteas aboka chimo chabudi uchibambezwa na mashango angao Sri Lanka, Wales, katina timu irenta ya Jamaica.
So it's definitely not going to be easy. We have a tough pool, but I think it's great preparation also for the rest of the games ahead. Jamaica will definitely be our biggest competition in our pool. Not taking anything away from any of the other teams, it's still going to be tough, but Jamaica will be the biggest opponent. So we need to win that one to make the road ahead easier, and we're definitely ready for the challenge. Yeah, so excited to take on the games. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. All of the games are going to be tough. But we have beaten Jamaica before at the 2019 World Cup actually, so that's also a very great memory that I have, and I look forward to feeling that feeling again.
Timu hii daba ipasi ya mtiko muhuru uri iwane gundoka mitambo ya chipuga cha lifasi. Grisel uri wadotambabu difunga chote uri bawani chipuga.
Everyone's expecting for us to at least get a medal, as you said, or get on the podium, but we are definitely working towards getting that trophy and the gold, and that's our challenge, and we're taking it on, and that's our aim, so we're working towards that. Obviously a podium finish would be great, but we are definitely going full out.
The Proteas dotomana mshumo wa kunga batariri kamtambo walifasi unawadotubahone bachidotamba na timu ya Wales ngadwala bufumbiri maro nga mwezi wa fulwana.
Timu ya rushaka ya cricket ya shango la Australia yokono wana wikete mbili nga utebekana chipingana cha mtambo wabo na England wa innings ya bubiri kadwala vuraru landingo ya utoma ya zi Ashes ngei Birmingham. Mvura yoto titisa mtambo winga masiari pezi Australia la shumisa mucho uyu visa wikete ya Ben Duckett ana migidimo ya Fumitai katina Zeka Crowley ana migidimo ya Sumpe pezi. Musi England lichiva mudabini rwa bubiri ni musi bachitoba na migidimo ya Fumbiri maro ngenofa batambi babiri. Matomoni shango la Australia lawalo kono sukisa migidimo ya madana mararu na fumaro rati. Ana musi erabaroba ferraone agumanga ndira yenei karido portangani chipingani chidao muchoko tebera abe masere ya budi yowa.